Oh my God, Palantir's down 9% and it's working on another down day. It's got everybody asking, should I be a buyer, a seller, or should I hold through all this volatility? I've got all of the charts, and believe me, they are some great charts. Seasonality, options activity, the technicals, why it's rolled over here, and they all give you a great answer on where you should turn into a buyer on Palantir, as well as my long-term outlook. Stick with me. 5 or 10 minutes, it's probably going to be 15, but you're going to learn something new and you're going to be a better investor for it. Let's jump into it right now. All right, let's jump in because I know you want the answer to whether or not you buy, hold, or sell Palantir here. It fell 9% yesterday. People feeling a little skittish about the stock. It was down more than 9% today on Wednesday, August 20th. So back-to-back potential there, and it is really shaking everybody to the core. I've got 12 charts, including the returns after we see 9% drops that you're going to want to see, and how the options market is positioned right now. It is very telling. So let's jump into it by, first of all, just going through the basics of what's going on with Palantir. I already said it. We dropped more than 9% on Tuesday, and it's really a move from speculators. Speculators are moving away from high volatility names over the last week or so. Let me give you an example, and just think about this. I always tell people that the market is driven higher by speculation, not fundamentals. Palantir is a perfect example of this. If you look over the last year or so, speculators continue to say this is where Palantir is headed. The earnings and the revenue, they don't back it up, right? That's why everybody's screaming this is an overvalued stock. Go ahead and do it down in the messages. You're not going to bother me. It's not. It's still in discovery phase. It's early growth, and that is why the speculators are in charge of this stock, not Wall Street. But what happens when we hit a period like August, which is seasonally weak, is that the speculators start to go and move into cash. They don't go and buy Johnson & Johnson. What they do is they move to the sidelines and they store their cash until they get a good buying opportunity. And you've seen it in names like Archer, Joby Aviation, Rigetti Computing, IONQ, you name it. Anything that has been part of those speculative names has pulled back significantly. It's a good reminder. Make sure you check out my report, The Speculative 7, down below. You can click it and get it for free. It is a report of the 7 companies that are going to take over for the Mag 7. You've got nuclear AI companies, you've got quantum computing companies, and you've got the eVTOL companies. Check it out. But back to my point, speculators tend to take the summers off, and that's why we see softness. And that is exactly what is happening with Palantir in this case. It's a classic combination of the slower slowdown, easy for you to say, it's summer slowdown, and a stock that needed a healthy correction. Palantir ran from $150 to $190 right after its earnings announcement, right? This thing was priced to perfection after that run, and it created a situation that I call a crescendo moment. You'll see that chart in just a second. Also, you've got Sam Altman. He's got the headline out there this week that there's an AI bubble forming, or at least he sees an AI bubble. And at the same time, we've seen another Wall Street analyst come out and say the same thing. All it comes down to is short-term traders are going to sideline themselves from August into September. I'll show you the seasonality chart for Palantir here in a second. Longer-term investors are going to have an opportunity to buy these dips. Be patient and watch the levels you're going to learn about right now. So here's your simple chart of Palantir. And as I already mentioned, this stock went through the roof, went up to $190. Let's look at, and keep in mind this 50-day moving average. Here's your 9% drop. Here's our 9% intraday drop. And notice that 50-day moving average is right there. That is the one trend line that represents the saying, the trend is your friend. And the trend has been very friendly for Palantir, and it's going to remain that way. But let's look at the more complex chart that really gets down into the nitty-gritty on why you're seeing these back-to-back 9% days and why Palantir is correcting more than the rest of the market. Right here, notice how we're above that pink line. Those pink lines are Bollinger Bands, and what they do, for those of you that don't know, is they basically measure whether a stock is acting within reason, let's call it, or at least the laws of math is the best way to put it. Stocks follow a normal distribution, at least those stocks that are widely traded. So The laws of math say whenever we don't follow those, they have to come back within a normal distribution. So as soon as we popped outside of that top Bollinger Band, it meant that these were unique days. They were unusual moves, and you had to have a regression to the mean. At the same time, we had a spike in volume, and we hit an overbought level of the RSI. When you put the three of those together, it's what I call a crescendo top for a stock. Think of an orchestra right before the end of the show when they hit that high mark and everybody's playing as hard as they can. The timpani drums are going. That's the crescendo moment for the opera or whatever you're seeing. Well, Palantir just had a crescendo moment. And whenever you have that, it has to fade into the quiet and the lights go out for a little while. And that's exactly what we've seen. My point here is this is natural. This is natural, especially with more speculative names. So don't run out and start hitting the sell button right now. That's what people are doing this morning and why we saw it pull back another 9%. Instead, you start to look at the data here, which I've got for you. How many times do you think Palantir's dropped 9% over the last 5 years, which is when we really started to see it trade? It's 18. I was hoping somebody put it down in the comments, but 18 times. And this table represents what the stock did literally from those days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 25, 30 days after that 9% move. And I'll get a nice chart that'll sum this up for you. But when you look down here, on average, those down days were 12%. When we look down here, you can see the first 3 or 4 days out of the box, the market's confused. We see drops of another 9%, and we're going to hit the back-to-back signals in just a second. But you see the stock starts to flounder around a little bit, and then all of a sudden, everybody starts to come in and buy the dip. And after 30 days, you've got those 18 signals averaging a positive 6.7% return. So that's kind of the good news. If you're looking at this from just a binary, when the stock goes down 9%, do you buy it? The performance tells you, the historical, and that is winners and losers, that 6.7%, tells you that on average, yeah, you're going to be up. Now, 18 signals, I think I want a little more depth to my signals, but let's take a look at what happens when you separate these by winners and losers. And for those of you that are going to ask, 50% of the time. 9 times it was up, 9 times it was down. So it doesn't get any easier with this data, but it tells you now the potential of your upside versus downside. And when we look to the upside, just go out to the end there, Palantir on average is up 25% when it's a winning signal. So when the stock rallies. When it doesn't, it drops 16%. These are your losing trades, and these are your winning trades. There is your average, this being that 6.7%. Now, I already brought up, and the bottom line here, folks, is that historically, when we look at it, you've got better upside, 25%, for the risk that you're taking to the downside. But let's go one step further. I mentioned that there are back-to-back signals here. It's happened 4 times. In the last 5 years, Palantir has seen 9% drops within 10 days of each other. And today we were working on a back-to-back one. But within 10 days, these are your returns. And notice how that changed. Here are the 4 that were within 10 days of each other. And this is just pandemonium. That's all that is. And it's a simple reason why. If you've got a company like Palantir that drops 9% in one day, people are going to look at it and say it's a buy the dip opportunity. If you see 2 in 3 days, 4 days, 10 days, 9 days, people are going to think the problem is much larger. And that's why you get this type of lack of confidence. It's no longer a curve, but instead you've got all kinds of volatility here. So if we bank that 9% move, another 9% move to the downside here in the next 10 days, including today, Wednesday, August 20th, yeah, you're going to expect a little more volatility, and it doesn't stop there. Like I said, I'm going to show you every bit of what to expect here. Seasonality, folks. I've been talking about it on MoneyMorning.com for the last 3 weeks or so. A lot of people kind of looked at it and laughed and said it's not a thing. It absolutely is. Always mind your seasonality calendar. In this case, when you look at the month of August for Palantir, it averages a return of 2.4%, and it only closes higher 40% of the time, which is 2 years out of those 5. Again, we're not looking at 20 years worth of data, but look at what happens when we turn the calendar to September and October. October is always the comeback kid, but my gosh, an average of 5.4% and then 5% for the stock, and it's up 75% of the time. What that tells me is that, number one, I've got an opportunity to let this stock air out, let this correction feel its way out a little more, expect the volatility. But I want to start looking at something around a September, early September bottom for the stock, because that is when seasonally it is going to start kicking into a little bit of a high gear. And because of that speculative nature, it's going to go faster than the rest of the market. And I'd expect more from those other names that I've already mentioned, your Rigettis, your Archers, all of those type of companies. Nano-nuclear energy, will see the market come back and start to get into these stocks in September. Now, I always like to look at the options market. The options market drives stocks more than I'll bet 90% of you understand. And what you see right now with the open interest configuration, this is not the volume, but this is the open interest configuration, is something strange with Palantir. And if you look right here, we've looked at Joby, we've looked at Archer. That's the $140 strike. And those are calls. That big green bar are calls. Normally, whenever you see a large bar like that, it acts as a magnet for the stock. If you're trading below it, when you run up to it, it tends to act as resistance. In this case, those calls have been there for a while, July 10th to be exact. And I'm going to show you something that is really interesting, and it kind of makes you go, it's the same thing I talked about with Archer. But for right now, we've got more clear support. Right now, you're going to see the $140 strike act as a magnet for the company. Pinning the strike is what we call it. Then you get down to 125, and that's where you see a lot of support coming in from the put open interest. Those options are going to have to be hedged if we go below $125, and that includes some buying of the stock, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So from this perspective, I expect to see $140 and $125 act as support for Palantir. But look at this. I just want to dig into this and why you guys want to watch these videos. This is that July 10th volume. So we've gone from looking at open interest, which is this chart and this huge bar, to this chart. This is why this bar is so big. Because on that one single day, July 10th, 43,325 contracts of the September 140 calls were traded. It was a $77 million trade. They traded for $1,790 each. You just do the math and you get the 77. And I put the there because there's a reason why something this unusual stands out on my screen and should be on yours. And in this case, 5 days later, Senator and President Trump confirmed $90 billion in the energy and innovation investments for Pennsylvania. And when you look down at the list of companies that are on the potential benefits list for it, Palantir is one of them, because they're talking about AI investments into the area, and obviously Palantir heavy there. So just another one of those things that makes me go, what's going on here? Those options have made tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars, and they are still there right now. That open interest configuration chart that we looked at here is as of today, the 20th. So those options are still open. I'm going to expect to see them pull off, but they've not been traded today. So very interesting. When I look out towards that September or October, this is what I see. And I love this picture. It's the wall of worry. All that red are put open interest contracts on Palantir. And when I start to see support at that 150, that tells me that $150 is going to return as a stronghold for Palantir. And $180, this is what it should look like, becomes that top level, that target for what I'm looking for. And if we hit 180, the stock is going through that 180 up towards a $200 print on it. So I love the look for October. September still looks a little shaky. I think we get people that are going to come in and buy that September dip, though. We're now getting what I call a little bit of exhausted selling. I always like to see extreme volume on these type of days because it tells me that the stock is now changing hands from weak hands over to strong people that are buying it. Stock is now reasonable in terms of its relative strength. That 50-day moving average is starting to kick in as support. And notice this. That bottom Bollinger Band is now starting to act as support as well. Normal distribution, the laws of math starts to kick in. We get that support at that 140 to 145 level. I don't rule out a chance that we break down to that 125. I don't think we see the 200-day moving at $105, but if we did, that's where I back up the truck on Palantir. You've also got, obviously, NVIDIA that's going to be announcing a week from today in this seasonality chart, which just sucks for August. So keep that in mind here for the next couple weeks. We're already fulfilling this with the stock. Actually, we're still a winner right now, but the stock heading towards a possible loss for the month of August. So what's it all come down to for you and I? Well, I already said shares were in need of a healthy correction, and they're getting exactly that. You see somewhere around that 20 to 30%. That's what Palantir normally puts in. It's almost like it's a 5 or 10% for a normal stock, but that's because it's such a speculative interest and it sees a lot of volatility and volume. Over the next week, listen for Wall Street analysts to increase their valuation calls on the stock. You're going to hear them say, I told you, I'm right. They are not in control. The speculators and the long-term investors are in control of the Palantir narrative. Beware of a dead cat bounce. Watch that 50-day moving average very closely. Right now it sits at $152.60. I'm not going to be shocked if we try to close back up above that and then maybe make a retest where people say, okay, now I can sell before the rest of the downside story here. It's what I call a self-fulfilling correction here. But watch that, and if we do get that dead cat bounce, I think you see that 125 to 140. All eyes on NVIDIA as we see those earnings come out next week. You've got some CoreWeave earnings and a number of other companies that are in the space that have kind of rattled the cages a little bit. Watch that because the AI bubble hype is in the air. Long-term support at that 200-day moving average, that's where I back the truck up. And then strong seasonality returns in October and September as well as Palantir climbs up that wall of worry. And how do I trade it? I always like to give you guys a little disclosure. I do hold those January 2027 leaps right now. They are way in the money. So what I've done here over the last couple of days when we started to roll over, I started to protect them, and I bought some October puts on Palantir. They were the 170s, so they went in the money. And I use that as a way so that I can use some cash raised from the hedge to go back and invest and buy at the dip. And again, I'll look to do that around the $140 level price, especially if we don't see that volatility start to die down on Palantir. That is it. I'm going to remind you one more time. Make sure you jump down below in the description. Get the link for the Speculative 7 report. It identifies those 7 companies. They are those quantum computing, the eVTOL companies, and nuclear AI that are taking a break right now, but creating some great buying opportunity. It's free. Also, go over and see us at moneymorning.com, talking about this every day. Love giving you the inside track on how you can beat Wall Street. Hope you have a great day, and I always wish you the best trading success. See you later, folks.